So, welcome everybody, and this is an evening presenting the information about a program that I ran last year in the Sanctuary Centre in Dublin, and I'm hoping to run again in October of this year, called Modern Spirituality. And it's a collaboration between the work I do, the Beehive Mindfulness School, and the Sanctuary are hosting it. Um, I can't remember how many years ago it was. I was teaching in All Hallows College in Dublin, courses on meditation and contemplation, and Sister Stan from the sanctuary attended two of the programs that I did and then invited me to teach in the sanctuary, the place in Dublin that she runs. So I've been there for about 20 years now, maybe, um, teaching different programs. But I guess spirituality is something that I'm quite passionate about. And I'm going to move on to the next slide. Did it change the slide for
Yeah.
you?
Yes.
Great. So I'm calling it the program Modern Spirituality, because spirituality is, what does it mean? Up to this point, I think for many years, spirituality was the domain that's been owned by various religions, if you like. And in order to access that domain, you have to be part of a particular faith path or tradition. And one of the things I'm attempting to do in my program is to say the spiritual domain exists in its own right and can be accessible to everybody, no matter what your faith path or belief. But I mean, if what if your religious belief brings you and introduces to the spiritual domain, then great, it's doing its job. If it's transforming you, um, my experience, though, over many years studying various religions and traditions, is that they don't always do that, unfortunately. Welcome, and yeah. So, why does spirituality matter today? And really, you know, for me, we're all these unique flowers in the field, and getting to know myself as the flower. There's no special flowers, by the way, because that means somebody's not special, but we're unique. And getting to know myself as the flower and accept and like myself and then relate in healthy ways to the other flowers, that's the work of personal development, if you like. Um, but then asking the question, but who am I as part of this field that we're all connected into? And for me, that's the question that invites me into a deeper spiritual journey. And I found over the years that what spirituality has offered me is often very counterculturally and the opposite of what my human self thinks. But it offers me a way of seeing myself in relation to the world that's completely different and much more wholesome and connected, and has given me a great sense of peace, and a lot more over the years. So that's why I'm passionate about it, I suppose, and want to teach it more. So over the years, I set up the Beehive Mindfulness School, it's called. I've been teaching and working for in this
Mindfulness
in
school, it's called.
oh
I've been teaching and working for in this. In, oh,
is there an echo?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Very
just
hard
going
to
to
hear.
mute everybody. I'm muting everybody. Now, how's that? Better. Okay. So I've been teaching and working in this area for 30 years now. Um, I'm a slow learner. But then, they say you teach what you need to know. Um, so a lot of the course there's a lot of mindfulness that we use and various practices and stillness to bring us into connection with that wider field. Um, so the program vision then is this is a transformational program. So it's transformational learning. It's different to head learning because you can read books about everything and know all about stuff in your head, but it doesn't necessarily transform you. In transformational learning, you have to put yourself into the learning. And that's the program that I'm offering. It's not just learning about stuff, although there's plenty of that too, but it's learning about ourselves. Who am I at a deeper level in connectedness to that spiritual field that we're all a part of? So that's why I called it modern spirituality. It's interspiritual. I like that word from Wayne Teasdale, his book, The Mystic Heart. He used the word interspiritual. It connects us. It connects us. I find in a lot of religious traditions, they tend to disconnect us unless you're part of that particular tradition. And it's experiential. It's a program where we actually do various exercises and rituals so that we have a direct experience of something beyond ourselves as the flower. And I think that's really unique and useful, because my job's not to teach anything. I don't see myself that way, but just to introduce people to the field, the spiritual field, and the field teaches us directly. And that's what I love about the work. I'm more just guiding people and holding them and supporting them in that introduction. So there is a difference between religion and spirituality. As I said earlier, if your faith or your tradition does introduce you to the spiritual domain and you are transformed by that, it's doing its job. So that's wonderful. But if it doesn't, it's not doing its job. And also in this program, everything that's in the program is lived, reflected on, and experienced and designed through my own life and my experience. It's not, while I use and reference a number of authors and books in the course, it's nothing that I haven't lived and experienced myself. And very much it's a form of a course of embodiment. I remember one of my teachers, Jack Finnegan, in the Milltown Institute, where I used to work as well, he said the highest form of spirituality is personhood. And I really liked that idea, that it makes us more human, more empathic, more open and available to the suffering of each other. And if it's not doing that, more humble. And if it's not doing that, it's something else. So in the program, we use various methodologies. There's some Qigong exercises, lots of mindfulness practices, some mindful walking around the sanctuary. There's a beautiful garden there now. I give some inputs, teaching. There's group discussion and reflection. We have a review paper after each module, which is just a review of how it landed with you and what you think. And I use Google Classroom for that. And then there's the experiential side of the program as well, various rituals and exercises. So the first thing that we encounter will be, and you can see the sanctuary there in the summer in the background, is the spiritual field. So I'll be introducing people to that concept. What does it mean? And how can I leverage it? Even the language that I'm using is to be able to describe what spirituality means and that part of my identity, and have the language and tools to do that. I always found that was something missing in my own development initially. Unless I used religious language, I couldn't describe the experiences I was having. And so realizing that the spiritual domain has a language all of its own, and what is that? And normally, it's mythic, poetic. These experiences are not necessarily for the thinking mind, the logical mind. They have to be described almost poetically in various ways. So we start off with introducing the spiritual field, and then we go into facing death and finding life. So all the major traditions deal with death, which sounds a bit morbid, but it's not. Because when we acknowledge the death of the physical self, it invites us to an immediacy in our everyday life. You know, if I know I'm going to die at some point, how do I want to live my life today? And so we do a ritual in one of the weekends. I encourage people to write their own eulogy, and we do a funeral for each person, and then bring them into the afterlife to connect with the wisdom of their own soul. So that's quite an experiential piece for a lot of people. Lying there listening to your own eulogy, and then, you know, acknowledging that your spirit is uplifted into some sort of afterlife, and what would that be like? So, you know, it's kind of like when we come back to that, it brings us into the present moment. It can be quite disappointing, I know, for a lot of my students over the years, when I say the end of the spiritual journey brings us here. It can be quite disappointing for a lot of people. It brings us into the present moment. And if that moment isn't rich and full of connectedness and love, and you're not meeting your spiritual ground in this moment, well, then there's work to be done. That's all. So Richard Rohr, the Franciscan writer, describes it as the eternal now, which I like. So as we connect as the flower, the individual self, into this field, the spiritual field, in terms of our identity, it's like in our practice, mindfulness practice, I encourage people to get a hold of themselves like a container. So, you know, I'm holding a loving, aware container for myself, and all my stuff is in the container swirling around my story, but I'm the holder. And as I practice that more and more over the years, I begin to realize that I'm also being held by this field of grace. And I actually feel that, and I know it, and I experience it. It's not just a concept of the mind. But if I'm not able to do the initial holding of myself first, then sure, I mean, my mind is wild and distracted. I never get to experience the deeper connection to the field. So, ironically, when I first designed the course, I was going to go from the tomb, or from the womb to the tomb, because that's what the direction we go in life. And before each weekend, I always tune in and listen into the field to see what I should be doing, and also into the group. And ironically, what came up, we went in the other direction instead. And it fits quite well from my own experience of my spiritual journey. So we go into the tomb, into the afterlife at the beginning of the program. And then as the program continues, we come back down through the various stages of life into the womb and into the great mother, the earth, and into the cosmic mother. Let's call it that. And so we connect into the spiritual field in the opposite direction. It's more of a downward movement. It's like a dying almost, but we're bringing our spiritual resources with us in that journey. And ultimately, we're connecting in both directions then in the end. There's a fancy term for it called being cosmobiologically linked in both directions. So we have quite an experiential weekend of going downwards through the adult self, the young adult, the teenager, the child, the baby, into the womb, and then beyond that, back into the spiritual field. And how what we encounter in that journey is very much individual for each person. And I support that in the program very, very, very strongly. So we go through the different stages of life, almost like in re-encountering ourselves, making sure that all the parts of ourselves are in and aligned and connected. And once that happens, it allows us then to transcend the individual self and open into that wider field, and experience that as the ground of our true identity, I guess, to experience that love, and that holding, in many ways. So I use lots of books and references throughout the course. I'm a big fan of Eckhart Tolle. I love his New Earth, any of his work. Some of the books, I'm also a new fan of Jeff Foster's poetry. I love his poetry. There's a great one called You Were Never Broken, which is one that I use in the program a lot. Mirabai Starr is great on anything mystical. And I use Parker Palmer on the hidden wholeness. And I mean, there's 100 books, but there is a reading list I give out during the program as we go along. And then the program structure is very much, we have 4 weekends in person in the sanctuary in Dublin. So we start with a weekend, and then we have 6 online weeks on a Wednesday night on Zoom. And then we do another weekend in person, and then we have another 6 online Zooms. And then a third weekend, 6 more Zooms, and then a final weekend. So the program is 8 months duration from October to May. And it's lovely to be in person. There's something really potent about that in the sanctuary through the changes of the seasons. And to be able to connect in person with people. And then, of course, if you can't make a particular Wednesday, we record the Zooms too. And I put everything up on Google Classroom, all the notes and resources for people. So again, there's a lot of mindful practices, experiential and so on. And I love, what I love about the sanctuary is it's very much connecting into nature as a holding for the program too, and the energy of the sanctuary. So who is it for? I mean, basically this program is for anyone who wants to explore their spirituality more deeply. No experience is necessary, just a curiosity or a willingness, I suppose, to deep dive into this field that I've described and to see what we encounter on that journey. So I'm not telling anybody what to believe. I'm not telling anybody what they're going to encounter. Again, it's very individual and very personal, but and the field teaches you directly. And that's what I love about it. So it's not a course about, dogma and so on, or this is what we believe and this is what's true and this is what's going to happen. I'm not really into any of that stuff, to be honest. For a lot of people, it gives them security and surety about things, but I think the more we enter the spiritual domain, the more we encounter the not knowing and the mystery, certainly for the thinking mind, which just wants to know and control everything. And that's no good. It's not going to get us very far. So what are the benefits of doing the program? And I've only got 1 or 2 more slides. Greater resilience, perhaps. Your roots are stronger the more you connect into your spiritual self. Inner peace and clarity can arise from that. There's a community of practice, so people that are on the same page. You might think you're crazy, but we're all crazy together. Less suffering, hopefully. Greater spiritual awareness, wholeness, and a deeper appreciation, I guess, of this life and its immediacy and its temporariness. So even if we're suffering, knowing that too will pass. And I have
Modern Spirituality course with John Doherty here in the sanctuary. And I suppose the first thing to say is about the sanctuary, it's just a beautiful space it is. Just coming here in itself brings peace and calm. But John Doherty facilitated the spiritual program over the last 8 months, and it has been an amazing journey. And I suppose for me, I now can look at the world through a spiritual framework. And I just noticed today as I was going around the sanctuary, usually when I come in here to the field, I see the beautiful flowers And yes, I did see the beautiful flowers, but I also saw the most extraordinary seed heads. And that was one of the things that the spirituality program has done for me. It's allowed me to see the world in a different way. John, of course, makes the journey such a special place. He's an amazing facilitator. He's a wealth of knowledge, a huge amount of experience. So for me, it's been an amazing journey, and so grateful I did it.
Could everyone hear that?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. And just one more from Martina.
So, hi, yes, I'm Martina, and today is the last day of our year-long program with John Doherty on modern spirituality. So we started last October, and a group of 10, 12 individuals who didn't know each other, we came together to explore modern spirituality. And it has been a year of community, of deepening our own connection with ourselves, of exploring our mortality, and really looking at spirituality in today's world. So many people confuse spirituality with religion, whereas this is just about living well, in connection with ourselves, in connection with community. John's way of teaching is very easy, relaxed. We have had 4 weeks, different days here in the beautiful sanctuary in Dublin, and then in between times, after each time we met in person, we had 6 weeks of meeting on a Wednesday evening for an hour and a half to 2 hours, where we developed our practice, meditation practice, and exploring what was going on in our lives. So,
Okay, great. So I'm going to stop the share now. Actually, one more slide. I'm trying to figure out all this Zoom stuff as I go. So can you see, the slide? So we're starting in October, on the 18th of October. It's €1,200 for the program, but pay plans are available. You can talk to the sanctuary about that. There's always a conversation to be had. If you want more information about the program, go to my website, thebeehive.ie, or if you want to apply, go to thesanctuary.ie. And then the last slide is our closing invitation from Jeff Foster, whose book I recommended, and he says, stop trying to heal yourself. Fix yourself, even awaken yourself. Let go of letting go. Stop trying to fast forward the movie of your life, chasing futures that never seem to arrive. Instead, bow deeply to yourself as you actually are. Your pain, your sorrow, your doubts, your deepest longing, your fearful thoughts are not mistakes, and they aren't asking to be healed. They are asking to be held here now, lightly, in the loving arms of present awareness.